In southern Peru there's a desert where someone, 2,000 years ago, drew on the ground a hummingbird the size of a soccer field. A 100-meter monkey. A perfect spider. Straight lines running for kilometers that don't swerve for anything. And the detail that turns it all into a mystery, on the ground, you can barely see a thing. These drawings only make sense seen from above. From a place where, in theory, no human of that era ever stood. This is the Mystery Archive, the NAZCA lines. Today I separate what science has already proven, because it has proven a lot, from what's still open, how they made them, how they survived 2,000 years, and the question no one answers with certainty, what for, and for whom. Open the file with me. First, the scale, because it's hard to picture. We're not talking about a few drawings. We're talking about more than 800 straight lines, over 300 geometric figures, and around 70 drawings of animals and plants, the famous biomorphs, spread across nearly 500 square kilometers of desert. It's an art gallery the size of a city, carved into the ground. They were made mainly by the NAZCA culture, between roughly 500 BC and 500 AD. And here's the thing science solves that disappoints the alien hunters. The technique is simple. Genius, but simple. The NAZCA desert is covered by a layer of reddish stones, darkened by time. Underneath, the soil is light, yellowish. To draw, you just remove the dark stones on top and expose the light line beneath. It's basically like scratching chalk on a giant blackboard made of ground. No deep digging, no special tools needed. It needed planning and labor. And you can prove it was within their reach. Archaeologists have recreated figures using only ropes, wooden stakes, and the tools of the era. With a small team in a few days, they reproduced huge drawings. The how they made them is solved. But how did they make a perfect 300-meter drawing without being able to see from above? That has an answer too, and it's elegant. For long straight lines, aligned stakes were enough, sighting from one to the next, the same technique a bricklayer uses to make a straight wall. For the curves of the animals, the leading theory is grid enlargement. You make a small drawing, divide it into squares, and reproduce it square by square at giant scale. It's the same method a mural painter uses today. You don't need to see from above. You need method. And why did they last 2,000 years without fading? Because of one of the driest, most stable deserts on the planet. It almost never rains, the surface barely gets wind, and the dark stones retain heat, creating a cushion of air that protects the ground from erosion. NAZCA is a natural archive room. If that desert had normal rainfall, the lines would have vanished within a few centuries and we'd never have known they existed. Now, what science does not settle, the purpose. And here the serious theories fight as equals. The first, from the 1940s, said, it's a gigantic astronomical calendar, with lines pointing to the rising of stars and the sun on key dates. Beautiful, but later statistical studies showed only some lines align with celestial bodies, more than chance but less than a calendar would demand. Astronomy explains a part. Not all. The second theory, today one of the strongest, ties everything to water. NAZCA is a desert. For that civilization, water was life or death. And many lines seem to point to underground water sources and to the Puquios, the impressive spiral aqueducts the NAZCA dug to draw water from below, which still work today. The idea, the figures and lines were part of rituals to beg the gods for rain and water. You walked along the line of the sacred animal, in procession, praying for water. And this is the third key, which ties the others together. The drawings may be paths. Notice that almost every NAZCA figure is made with a single, continuous line that never crosses itself, and that has an entrance and an exit. That's suspicious. It suggests people walked along them in rituals, tracing the body of the hummingbird or the spider on foot, like a labyrinthine pilgrimage. The drawing wasn't meant to be looked at from above. It was meant to be walked from below. That resolves the only visible from the sky paradox. Maybe it was never meant to be seen from above by anyone. It was meant to be lived with the feet. Then you ask, so who were they for, up above? And the answer changes everything. They weren't for humans to see. They were for the gods. In a culture that saw the mountains, the sky, and the water as living deities, you draw a giant on the ground so the gods, up there, will see your offering. The audience of the NAZCA lines was always divine. We spent decades confused because we assumed art is made for us, when for them, it was made for the sky. And science hasn't stopped. In recent years, artificial intelligence cross-referencing satellite images and drones has discovered hundreds of new figures, many small and faded, invisible to the naked eye, cats, birds, human figures, some even older, from the Paracas culture that predates the NAZCA. So the NAZCA archive is far larger than we saw, and grows with every new scan. There are drawings out there no human eye had seen for 2,000 years, until an algorithm found them last week. It's worth facing the legend. No, the NAZCA lines are not alien landing strips. That idea, popularized in the 1970s, ignores that the ground is soft and the runways are just ritual clearings. Any ship would sink. And it ignores, above all, something offensive, the assumption that an indigenous people of the Americas couldn't have done this alone. They did. With ropes, stakes, method and faith. Crediting aliens isn't praising the mystery, it's stealing the credit from those who truly earned it. The scoreboard of facts. Confirmed, the lines are real, mapped and dated. The stone removal technique is proven and reproducible. The preservation is due to the extreme climate. The figures are drawn in a single continuous line, compatible with ritual walking. And there's a strong link to water worship and the aqueducts that still function. None of this is in dispute. Still open, the exact balance of astronomy, water, and ritual in each line, probably all three at once, varying by figure. And the specific meaning of each animal, why a hummingbird here, a spider there. With no NAZCA writing to read, each drawing keeps its own message, and we can only guess the language. And there's the human story behind it all. A German mathematician named Maria Reich spent 50 years of her life measuring, mapping, and protecting the lines, often alone, sweeping the desert with a broom so the dust wouldn't erase them. It was she who convinced the world that this was heritage, not just wasteland. Without her, roads and looters would have destroyed much of the site before we understood what it was. The lines survived 2,000 years of climate, but a single careless footprint lasts for decades. What nature preserved for 2 millennia, a pair of careless boots can erase in a minute. My verdict for this file: the NAZCA lines are the opposite of what the legends sold. They're not an impossible alien enigma, they're the most beautiful proof that an ancient people, with ropes and patience, could think on the scale of gods. They drew upward because they spoke to the heavens. And the most incredible thing isn't that we don't understand it, it's that, 2,000 years later, we're still finding drawings they left. The desert is still delivering letters. We just learned to read them now. It's worth lingering on the Puquios, because they're a marvel in their own right. These are spiral wells the NAZCA dug down to the water table, with corkscrew ramps you can still walk today. They work by funneling wine down the spiral, which pushes air over the underground water and forces it along channels to where the crops were. It's wind-powered hydraulic engineering, built 2,000 years ago, and it still delivers water to fields in the desert right now. A people who could engineer that were more than capable of drawing a hummingbird on the ground. And consider how the lines were experienced in life. Recent studies of pottery found along the figures suggest people walked them in procession, smashing ceramic offerings at specific points. The drawing wasn't a static image, it was a stage, a ritual route where an entire community moved together, singing, praying, breaking pots for the gods. The desert wasn't a canvas. It was a temple with no walls, and the lines were its corridors. There's also a humbling lesson in how nearly we lost them. In the 20th century, the Pan American Highway was built straight through the site, slicing across some of the figures before anyone realized what they were. A giant lizard drawing is cut in half by the asphalt to this day. We came within a generation of bulldozing the greatest open-air gallery of the ancient world without ever knowing it was there. And the final wonder is ongoing. As drones and AI keep scanning, the count keeps climbing. What began as a few dozen famous figures is now hundreds, and researchers believe many more lie faded beyond the reach of today's cameras. Somewhere in that desert, right now, there are messages drawn by human hands 2,000 years ago that no living person has ever seen. The archive isn't closed. It's still being opened, one scan at a time. And you? Calendar, prayer for water, or sacred labyrinth for the gods? Leave your verdict in the comments. And which figure impresses you most, the hummingbird, the spider, the monkey, or the one that looks like an astronaut waving? Subscribe and hit the bell, a new mystery every day, and a full file every week. The archive never really closes.